30? 30 magic. Alright. Patch 3 for Hades 2 was just released a few days ago, and along with a large number of other balance changes and interesting additions, which I will definitely be covering some of, the Lunar Hex Lunar Ray got a massive buff, lowering its magic usage requirement from 70 to 30, making the base hex insanely strong in comparison to before. Now, the thing with Lunar Ray and a bunch of the other hexes is that they could already be really good, but usually only after getting specific Path of Stars upgrades. There's never a guarantee that you're going to get all of the upgrades that you want in a run, however, due to certain upgrades not appearing in the skill tree on any given night, or just not finding enough Gifts of the Moon, so sometimes you would just get stuck with a rather subpar hex. I would have classified Lunar Ray as one of those because the hex has a big issue, being that you have to stand still to fire it. This is an enormous, glaring weakness because unless you're just absolutely insane at the game and can keep track of all the enemies during encounters and know all the indicators and timings of the enemy and boss attacks, you're gonna mess up sometimes when using the hex and end up right in the line of fire, or with something jumping on your face. The only things you can do in those situations are just to take the damage, which is never ideal in a game like this, or to dash away and end the hex early, which, when the magic spend requirement was 70 or 120 like it was before patch 2, is really annoying and feels like a huge waste of damage. So now with the base Lunar Ray only costing 30, it's much less punishing than before. You can actually stop the hex to avoid damage and then have it back up very quickly. Obviously, it also does way more overall damage, since it can theoretically have more than double the uptime, and in the couple runs since the patch dropped where I happened to pick it up, it seemed pretty solid. Lunar Ray feels much more smooth to use in a way, and with it being so quick to charge now, it really feels like a strong primary damage option, and is especially good for dealing large chunks of damage to the early bosses and mini-bosses that you find throughout the underworld and surface regions. The basic beam still falls off as runs progress and can be difficult to use against strong shielded enemies later in the game. Especially problematic is Kronos himself, because he's much less forgiving and more dangerous than the other bosses in the game. Finding a moment in a fight like this where standing still for 3 seconds won't get you hit can be a little difficult, and risking that damage for 900 of your own is probably just not worth it, since it's not all that much at this point in the game anyways. But this hex can still be a powerful asset later in attempts with the right upgrades, in my opinion the best one being Prominence, which makes the hex aim and fire from the location that it was used, dealing the same large chunk of damage while leaving the player free to do other things. To make sure that you can't just spam this with the lowered magic recharge though, obtaining this upgrade increases the magic recharge threshold to a similar level to what it was before. This is something that the majority of the powerful Path of Stars upgrades do to the other hexes as of patch 3 as well, meant to counter out the large buff that some of them received so that they aren't too strong. And I think it's a great way to balance them out. Well done to Supergiant, making sure that at least most of the Lunar Hexes can find good use right from when you get them, without being too OP when upgraded properly. I think that Lunar Ray got a particularly big buff in this most recent wave of changes, and I wanted to cover that, as well as highlight this cool way in which the Path of Stars was altered. And I think I got just about everything, so that'll be all for today. Like always, let me know what you think in the comments, leave a like if you liked the video, and I will see you in the next one.